All right, so I'm gonna be heading to the market in a bit, but I thought that this would be. Hold on. I thought that this would be a pretty good place because I'm pretty interested in talking about this. I had just seen this video on whether or not artificial intelligence can identify you in, like through your algorithm, like. And to me, I think these sorts of questions are pretty elementary, right? But they they invite us into a conversation that, I mean, hey, is very much needed, and we'll get into my reasons why. But I just want to make sure that I leave up on the chalkboard the big picture question: is AI racist? Okay, so I want to start us off on this concept that artificial intelligence creates environments, right? And this isn't like new information, right? This is what people are saying. People are saying that artificial intelligence creates environments. So, because you have to remember too that artificial intelligence is a creation by humans that is really only meant to replicate human behavior. You know, uh, it doesn't do anything on its own, right? It's been programmed. This is an object that has been programmed by humans to do things. And the things that it does include many things, apparently, right? Like as they tell us, maps and, you know, search engines and, you know, even your bank and everybody has a AI. Everybody had the call. Everybody had the automated caller. Oh, but when AI came out, oh yeah, now it's AI, right? Like whatever, like so cheap. And of course, in the acquisition of data, again, you wonder, well, what to do with it, right? What can I do with this data? And this data, right, is very much being manipulated because, again, right, the computers or whatever, right, like the artificial intelligence doesn't have the autonomy within itself of whether or not it's going to do this or that with your data or your information or whatever, you know? Like people program it to do what it does. But it'll just collect. You know what I mean? And so like I said, people can program, they go in and program it so that it does more filtering out as well, right? Like the machine doesn't take it upon itself to say, okay, I'm gonna build, another, thread or something like this. Like I'm not gonna, like that's not possible. There are human beings who are doing this, you know, and it's a group of human beings. Like every human being isn't partaking in the process of the creation of AI. You know what I mean? But what's interesting is that we are contributing to the development of it, right? And that is one of the things that we'll be discussing here. But I really want to get us to this other point though about you know being a person and this idea of creating environments, right? Because all we've ever done is create environments, right? Like even it when you go through the Bible, even, or when you go through uh places of ancient times and things of this nature, like people intentionally sought for ways to separate themselves from other people, like even in their own environments. You know, I like to bring up the example of there was a type of people who wore one golden earring on their left ear, and that's how they were identifiable to some other group of people. Okay. um and this was a sort of intentional doing as well, meaning uh on both sides. So on the one hand, uh perpetuating the difference between the two in terms of identifying certain patterns, that these people follow, right? Or that these people do, and using those as descriptors, right? To refer to them where necessary, you know, to refer to them where necessary.
And on the other side of the coin, I was just referring to how, we perpetuate the idea that we can develop patterns through our power of interpretation, but at the same time, we feed into the things that we we feed into people's perceptions. So we'll do it intentionally, like they made a choice, these people made a choice to wear golden earrings as part of their uh identity, or their, to show themselves, and they also do it because they have like those deeper meanings. Oh, we want to delineate ourselves from, everyone else.
And you know it's always, the point I'm making is just that it's always been a part of our civilization, and oh man, I'm talking about it in my one of my classes about, again, like how this is, it's reigned true, right? Like even in Chicano studies, like, light skins and dark skins, you know what I mean? There's always been, these stupid things, like we've always done it, even before there was a system of white supremacy or anything like that. You know, there was, there was still colorism, you know, and they acknowledge it. The scholars acknowledge it as well uh in the works, that they do, who look and see that other side of, you know of meaning of people who deliberately go ahead and think out what they're doing intentionally. I say all the time, people telling themselves. And so anyway, this is an issue that none of us cannot see. Like, again, right? Like, as a base level, I really don't have any opinions. All I do is I make observations, and you can develop opinions, but again, like, the choice that you are making, like you when or where or how you're making a choice, like you understand the stakes of the choice that you have to make. And so what I'm just saying is that, you know people complain about petty bullshit and we entertain it. Like, people put a lot of weight into really, really small shit. Like, people will even say, "Oh, well, I do this just because," like, they'll acknowledge that, yeah, I'm selfish. I need this. This is mine. It's just because I want it, you know? And there are absolutely contexts where it's necessary to, set that boundary. But, you know, at the end of the day, we need to, like, do a little bit better with the judgment issue, right? It's really the judgment issue, because, like I said, I mean, it'd be one thing if, with these social movements, that they were just social movements or whatever, and that's just it. But no, these movements have gone to seek political legitimacy, legal legitimacy. And so now we are in this environment which is investing into very, very small things. Very, very small things. That could be managed in a multiple of ways, and this is part of why, again, shout out to Green Nalima, she You know, she's going out there. She's telling on girls. Like she's telling on girls. I'm telling you right now, she has. It's up. It's up because they are absolutely at liberty to be like, oh well, you know, like just to speak deeply into the psychology of, you know, uh, being a woman or generally, and what is being focused on, you know what I mean? Like what is being idolized, what is it that the person actually, you know, is motivated by, you know? And yeah, so I'm just saying, you know, these things really only are these things are most relevant in the smaller environments or in the environments that they are relevant. You know what I mean? Like the issue of whether or not your algorithm happens to show you some racist shit in your feed, right? Like it doesn't mean that you have to entertain it. That's what the like button is for. That's what the repost button is for. That's what the reply button is for. And that's also for what you're scrolling or whatever is for. You know? You have a life in general, like they're your eyes, they're your hands. You know what I'm saying? Is AI racist? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Is AI racist? Are we are we look at AI, it is regurgitating the exact same condition of the environment created by humans, and you know that, but then you're actually receiving it and you're like, bro, bro. Like, grow the fuck up, bro. So anyway, you know, my thing is just about like, you know, it's very, very important for us to talk about the time dimension, right? Um, People forget because, and again, I'm speaking to the problem of entertaining petty bullshit. People take their time, use their time because time is irrefutable, you know. You can't take time away. You know, it's apparent. You know, we don't need it to measure anything. Sorry, meaning we don't need to measure time to know that it is, you know, uh here, you know. And so like, you know, how long does a meme have to last in your residual, you know, environment or like or presence or whatever? You know what I mean? Like everything has a residual effect, and that includes the things that you validate as being, you know, apparent. Like a lot of people don't even realize that, you know, they make their own nightmares. You know, like they a lot of people like, you know, and literally though, in this way that I'm speaking about it though, it is in the speaking about it. Like it is literally in taking, like for example, right? Like, all right, I might have a situation where they bring up some shit about, you know, the prince and, you know, Meghan Markle or whatever, and I'll say I don't care about, you know, the prince and Meghan Markle and what's going on with him. But okay, if I don't care about it, right? See, and that's the thing, right? It's not even about like whether or not you care about it. It's just like you're perpetuating the thing more in the environment the more that you talk about it. Like the more that you identify it, the more you reveal it. You know what I mean? Like you don't like everybody knows this already though. Like everybody already knows that like, oh yeah, it'll be like that song I hate, but you know, it's playing everywhere, so now it's stuck in my head. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? So 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 here we are where, you know, um we have this issue. These people are talking for like an hour, bro, about like, you know, artificial intelligence and, people's responses to like what their algorithms show them at times. And man, some people are just so dramatic, but if there's any place where, it's like you reap what you sow, it's definitely in something like this that like is literally programmed, to do that. Um but anyway, like it's not their job to guide the tech or tweak it. Like that's the point that I'm making to you. Like it's not the job of the developers of the artificial intelligence of any kind to guide the tech to like create filters and put it in there, right? I thought artificial intelligence and all of this, right, was supposed to be organic, right? Organically, whatever that's supposed to mean, right? Building up its data. But instead, here we are pandering to pussies, talking about, oh, this person said something on the internet and, you know, something must be done. Okay, what did they post? They said a mean word and I didn't like it very much. Was it directed towards you even? No, it wasn't. It wasn't directed toward me, but it's just a bad word and it's not a good thing to talk about. Like, bro, like, do you really understand how crazy it is, like, to be a single person and knowing that there are other single persons? Like, there are individuals everywhere, bro. Like, if I have my own life, imagine what your fucking life is like. You know? And our awareness of that, our conscientiousness of that goes to show and proves that it is our responsibility as the people to guide the tech or to guide like the informational flow of the times. And we do that. We do that. We do that by, you know, making decisions, making the decisions that we make. And we do have a certain level of conscientiousness when it comes down to making decisions. Like you're not gonna jump off of a fucking cliff recreationally, you know what I'm saying? Not, without, safety, everything, so there are definitely capacities. You're not gonna fucking stab yourself or whatever. So, you know, bro, like at the end of the day, you know, it's just about a certain level of like we there's a certain level of consciousness that we are all on, but we keep trying to start everybody over as like ground zero. You know what I mean? Because we feed into like these very small things that mean nothing. You know what I mean? And as long as we continue to perpetuate that, we will continue to perpetuate nothingness and mediocrity, and not making product, not being progressive, not being productive. um and of course I don't mean progressive politically, Jesus, not in the way that it's being represented in this time, or that it's been represented for the times that have been passing. But anyway, you know it is our responsibility as the people to take control over the fact that we are the beholders of information, that there have been others who have information, who have shared information, and, you know, recorded their times. It helps us in so many different ways. You know, it's not now. It's not really gonna. I'm not sure how much it really helps for me to allow my body to get all worked up or anything like that. And you know what I'm saying, go ahead out, hit up the mayor or whoever, or even your political representative, and be like, hey, you know some gripe, and just waste their time. Like, no, like, no, like that's your own problem, like, to an extent, right? Like, people don't even really realize that they are their own problems, you know? Like, consider this, right? Like, objects. The irony of the ontological and epistemological ideas pondered as the capacity of artificial intelligence is, you know, it's for example, I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is that people are smarter than they think, you know, and they know that they are, you know, like our decision making isn't that much different. You know, context is important because the question is, what is the object being sought, right? Objects only become relevant in context. I said objects, right? I said objects only become relevant in context because of context. Like you like there needs to be some action. There needs to be some action. Um and 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 as well, understanding that within, because when there's action, there's also a potential to engage, you know, with the context to make it more, you know, present in the environment, because that's all it's going to do. Like it only becomes more present in the environment because, you know, like you're letting yes, it's here, okay, like yeah, it's here, okay. And you know, at the end of the day, we should be prepared, uh, with our wisdom and with our knowledge and passing that on, you know what I mean? These things about what it is to be a human, you know, figuring out what it is that we actually want for ourselves and stuff like this, including, just like I said, this capacity of, you know, decision making. Like I said, when we're talking about what is the object being sought, like what is the purpose, right? Like I'm saying, like everything doesn't need to be blown up. You know what I'm saying? Like time passes. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but every little poke is not worthy of a punch. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know your boundaries. And that's precisely because of the limits that you allow within your own systems of relationships. You admonish each other, you use sarcasm and humor, but it is also reserved for particular types of people, to take from and to give it to. The first issue, in my eyes, is the judgment. We clearly have more control over ourselves than we give off. We cannot be giving so much time and gravity, which is energy, into things that are truly not that significant. Now, I've also been compelled to speak about the concept of woke as well because it is a relative concept, as with all things, but as well the capacity of what it means to be woke. There are these sorts of ways that we become alive. Like, do you know how bonkers it is to know, like, for real, like I said, I mean, to be alive is one thing. To know that there are other lives around you, you know, is it just expands. Like, and to me, it's all gratitude, right? Like, that's how I look at it. It's just, it's gratitude. Investing into that thought leads me to gratitude, you know. Um, and the thing is that I couldn't possibly know every single thing that you've done and every bit of your experience and exactly how you interpreted it, no matter what way you tell me. But I can find similarities and differences between the various objects among us to help us share the memory together. Uh, this is, of course, augmented by the capacity of expression. And I find it interesting, for example, that laws and treaties between countries would be written in particular languages because the language had a greater capacity for expression. And that fact is one of the ways that I can confidently say is a way to show civility. Um, Truly we've been plagued by the so-called fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but I can't say that it was unintended. God himself said that it was not good for Adam to be alone, and thus brought Eve about. Adam was unequivocally fine with following the word of God without the extra what? Temptation? Well, Adam was far less equipped than any of us are to make responsible decisions. There are records of our lives now. We have sufficient language and resources for translation in our multitude of languages. The question is who wants it, and who is making the true so-called progressive choice. The irony of the artificial intelligence conversation loops all the way back into the dynamic between the physical and psychological realm and how it correlates with how artificial intelligence is being painted publicly. On one hand, we think it's a great idea, the kind of benefits that things can afford us physically and psychologically. And on the other hand, we are far more averse to physical detriment than to psychological detriment. A lost psychological battle is like, oh, well, get good, right? But the spectra that hosts the capacity to lose in a physical battle is not always a pretty sight to think of when considering choices to make. And here's the punchline, that we already have it out there in the conscious realm that artificial intelligence can be brought to have the capacity to betray humans. Yes, but we should keep having these conversations, right? And going in the same circles over and over again and perpetuating all this into our environment. Time is such a strong, irrefutable part of our existence, and we don't need to measure it to have evidence of it. That's a significant part of what makes it a dimension. And a fact like this alone, it should be absolutely destroyed any thoughts that incline people toward the idea that we can draw all of the dimensions. In fact, such a replication would be an object, such as a song or a film or some other object that uses time to pass it. What are you doing with your time? We are actively in a state of judgment at all times. But what is it that we are judging? Are we judging the object of something as the object? Or are we judging the spirit of something? Of course, there will be interplay between the realms, but considering the fact that the obvious objective laid by the tech companies is as much consumption and data into these things as possible, you would wonder for what purpose could this be created? Regardless, I mean, it's a beautiful invention, and I'd be pleased to see it solve great problems and be used as a reliable tool for multiple uses. But as of right now, I just don't think there's much of anything to really be impressed about. And just as a bit of an extra piece, because I love you guys so much, I want to share with you another anecdote that speaks to the gravity of this story. There's a computer scientist by the name of Philip Emeagwali, who is considered one of the fathers of the internet. He created the fastest supercomputer in the world in the 1980s by compounding thousands of processors together to solve the issue of whether parallel processing or serial processing were more effective uses of getting more power. The question was clear. Which technique was more efficient to achieving the fastest speeds? Parallel processing or serial processing? Now, Dr. Emeagwali did terrific work in the 1980s when he combined 65,536 processors together to solve one huge mathematical problem, which was regarding the simulation of oil reserves. The obstacle was that you could only cram so many resources into a single processor before the power begins to plateau and even drop off. And there's only so much capacity you can allot to that. But alas, with separate processors working together, they were able to solve the equations faster, even when the processors are older than the most up-to-date version of the sequence. Now, I want us to put this into perspective here, because right now, we are all being processed in parallel to speed up their understanding of the human. so that they can replicate it in its ways to have humans focused on their objects. Consider what you feed it, that your data can be replicated. But what does that mean for you? These are times of great awareness, greater than even a couple of the generations who remember what it was like not to have access to so much at one time. And really, all it has done is answer certain questions, such as, how different are we? And I really would just appreciate it if we acted more like we really saw how much similar we really are. Those with ears, let them hear.